Welcome, ma'am. We will be starting it shortly.
Welcome, ma'am. Greetings to all present. Before beginning with the session, please make a note of the rules and instructions which are to be followed throughout the webinar. You can switch on your videos but kindly keep yourself on mute at all times. Please try to log in through your laptop so as to get a better visual experience. The forum will be open for questions and answers later, so kindly post your queries in the chat box only.
Great. Hi everyone. Can you all hear me? I'm going to take that as a yes. Brilliant. Hi everyone. Good morning. I'm Aishwarya. I am the Director Student Engagement of Talerang. And thank you so much to all of you at Shaheed Rajguru College for actually inviting me for this particular talk as well. Before we begin, I'll start with a quick little introduction about myself as well? Or are you guys going to start with the introduction? Are there any slides that you guys are presenting, or how are we going about it?
Yes, ma'am. We are actually waiting for a few members to join. Then we'll be starting.
Got it. Just let me know whenever you guys want to start.
Sure.
Immediately. Thanks, guys.
A very good evening to one and all present here. I, Khushbu Singla, on behalf of the Institution's Innovation Council of Shaheed Rajguru College of Applied Sciences for Women, University of Delhi, would like to extend my profound and earnest welcome to Ms. Aishwarya Chauhan, the speaker for today's webinar. I would also like to extend a wholehearted welcome to our esteemed Principal Ma'am, Dr. Payal Magu, and Convener, Dr. Ranjana Singh, co-convener Dr. Dimpy Handa. I would also like to extend our sincere and heartfelt welcome to all the scholarly and knowledgeable teachers who all are present here and to all the thoughtful and attentive audience present here. We are truly humbled beyond measure for such an overwhelming response.
Group discussion is one of the methods that companies or organizations use to check whether the candidates have certain personality or skills which are must for their employees. Nowadays, group discussions have become a main tool in the recruitment process across the world. The whole concept of the group discussion is to bring collectively a unit of people on a common platform to share their ideas. This helps us to assess one's communication, decision making, and critical thinking skills, overall contributing in polishing interpersonal skills. So the to acquaint you all the different realms of the group discussions. The institution's Innovation Council of Shaheed Rajguru College of Applied Sciences for Women brings to you a highly informative and interesting webinar on Acing Group Discussions. We are glad to have Ms. Aishwarya Chauhan ma'am as the speaker for today's session. She is a mechanical engineer graduated from the University of Strathclyde, UK. She is the director at Student Engagement Talerang. We now like to welcome Ms. Aishwarya Chauhan ma'am who will enlighten us about Acing Group Discussion. Ma'am.
Thank you so much, guys, for that lovely introduction as well. And I'm so happy to be here today to just be discussing and walking you guys through group discussions. If you guys have any questions, you can always write it on the chat as well, just to make it as interactive as possible so that you guys kind of take away a lot of learnings as well. Um, would you want me to start, or are there any of the introductions left to do?
Ma'am, you can start.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you all for having me here today as well. I think I cannot top that introduction myself, but yes, just very quickly, I'm Aishwarya. I'm the Director of Student Engagement at Talerang. I have graduated from the University of Strathclyde, and previously I have worked with Cummins and HAL, and now I head student engagement at an organization called Talerang, which helps students like yourself become work ready. So I'm just going to be projecting my screen as well. If I could get permission, that would be great.
Anjali, you can stop presenting.
Thank you. All right. Great. So welcome, everybody. One of the key things at Talerang that we all believe in is that academic brilliance does not equate to professional success, right? And we already started with a round of introductions. This is a bit about Shweta, who's our CEO and founder. So Shweta did her undergrad from Brown, and then she went on to work at Goldman Sachs and McKinsey in New York, post which she was the youngest director at Teach for India, after which she went on to go to Harvard Business School, where she founded Talerang as a research project. Now, all of you might know that, Talerang in general is a coined term. It's an amalgamation of talent plus boomerang. And what I want you all to kind of take away from this discussion as well is that, just how you throw a boomerang and it always comes back to you. If you hone your talents and your skills in a particular manner, it will always come back to you tenfold, right? So it's all about kind of realizing what your strengths and your development areas are and how that kind of translates into your group discussions. Now, one of our missions is to help all of you, undergrad students like yourself, realize, the Gen Z, realize what your skill sets are, and then we map all of you to the jobs of the future, jobs that you will actually excel in. So when we started off as a research project, we interviewed students from across the country, from IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, St. Stephen's, LSR, They're all our partner colleges as well. And we got to know that 60% of our graduates don't feel like they are work ready. And that's what we're trying to kind of achieve as well. And since all of you are here in a manner of speaking to get kind of work ready, right? Let me ask all of you, and these are some of the panel members and the senior board panel members as well. But let me ask you guys, my first pop question to all of you is, what do you think it means to get work ready? Anyone? You can write it in the chat if you're not very confident about unmuting yourself as well. Any guesses? 10 points.
You should have apt knowledge or skills to get the right job.
Okay, absolutely. It's a very good point, Khushbu. Have the right skills and knowledge to get the right job. What else? What else do you guys think does getting work ready entail?
Confidence.
Confidence? Absolutely. Yes. Very well done. Confidence and the right skills. Can I ask how many of you have previously done any sort of internships or are looking for internships? Are any of you, have you applied for any internships? Have you completed any internships? Yes, Anushka, you have. Aditi as well. All right. I see a lot of you have. Okay. Very well done. And what's the takeaway from your internships as well? Did you enjoy it? Did you learn something from it? Communication, skill development? Yes. Absolutely. So when we look at getting and team management, that's an excellent point that you've pointed out right there, Anushka. Very well done. So one of the key things when we talk about getting work ready, guys, it's also about realizing the fact that you need to go above and beyond your classroom, which technically means get as much practical experience as you can. And this is usually through internships, you know. And if you still haven't gotten your internships, please do not stress, right? Practical experiences right now in college also entails your extracurricular activities. So the more you involve yourself into things like clubs and societies, it also kind of translates into practical experiences. So involve yourself, go above and beyond your classroom. Besides getting the right sort of practical experience, these are 6 things I want all of you to focus on as well, right? One is self-leadership. Even if you want to go for a group discussion round, please know what are your strengths and your development areas. What are your hard and soft skills, right? Are you good at communicating? Are you good at are your analytical abilities good? Are your problem solving abilities good? What are you actually good at, right? Play to those strengths in your group discussion rounds and know your um, areas of development, which are basically your weaknesses. So let's say, in fact, 80 to 90% of students say that communication is their weak point. So if that is truly your weak point, because that plays a major role in group discussions, I want you to start focusing on that as well. How can you play to your strengths and overcome your weakness when you are surrounded by a lot of other students who are similarly in your place? Now, again, life vision, you guys are going to be applying to jobs very soon. Please keep in mind that, around 60% of people quit their jobs within the first 1 year. And that's usually because you can't align your own values with the company's values. So research, really understand what that company is looking for, and then apply. Ultimately, it's perfect communication. Even if you're going for a group discussion, key points that we want you to remember is Be crisp, be concise, and be to the point, right? The more you start going around in circles, the more it's going to go down into a wormhole as well. So always be absolutely to the point, right? So that the other person can understand what you're trying to say. Working smart. One of the key things, and I think a lot of you wrote down that you learned how to manage your time through your internship. And that's absolutely one of the strengths that a lot of employers look for is how well can you actually manage your time, because you're going to be juggling a lot of deadlines. And it's not like college where you can actually sit up late at night and kind of revise through your and go through your syllabus one day before the exam. You need to get things done way in advance, and ultimately it's perfect impressions, right? And your first impressions, your first perfect impression always boils down to your group discussion as well. So key things is, and I'll be touching more upon this later, how can you appear to be confident during these rounds, because that kind of relates and transitions into your first impressions and ultimately bridge to career and real world. All of these things need to be working together for you in order for you to help crack that job that you're looking for. Now, let me ask you, any questions on any of these points that we've covered till now? I'm going to take that as a no. All right. Okay. Great. So, moving on, um, what we're going to do is, we run a program specifically, like we said, for undergraduate students, where we train you on our research from Harvard Business School. We cover 12 sessions for our competency training on your hard and soft skills. And we touch upon everything: communication, your analytical skills. And then we place our students for internships with our corporate partners. So we have over 350 corporate partners like Aditya Birla, Mahindra. So if you are interested, you can definitely apply for our program as well. We're going to be doing a quick kind of round for me to kind of understand as well where you all stand. It's going to be called Coffee with Karan. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be saying one word, and I want you to write down the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear this word. All right? So, for example, let's say winters. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say winter?
Sweater.
Sweater? Yes, no lizards. Really? I thought lizards come out during winters. It's a terrible time, guys. Or maybe it's just my house. I don't know. Okay. All right. Let's try another one. Let's say college. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when we say college?
Online classes.
Online classes, fun, online, stress, COVID. Yes. Oh my God, guys. Terrible. Anywho, now that you kind of understand the game as well, let's kind of transition it more towards your profession, right? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say first job? Nothing? You don't have to think about it, guys.
Yeah, it's company.
Company, perfection, passion. All right, brilliant. Nervous, excitement. Okay. What about life? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say life? Learning, art. One of you said struggle, enjoyment, unpredictable. Okay. All right. What about what do you want to do after college? A job. Okay. A job. I see a lot of jobs. And one of you wrote MBA. Nice. And one of you wants to explore. Brilliant. I see a lot of you want to go down the job route, and some of you want to kind of experiment with your higher studies as well. That's a good thing. Now, this is what we call self-awareness, right? The very first step before you start applying to any companies is kind of know where you are right now. a lot of times we don't ask ourselves the right question, right? Our first job, what do I really want to do after college? And it's all about knowing that the answers are always in our subconscious, right? So the key thing is, and what we call authentic leadership, is if you don't understand where you are right now, how are you going to plan for the future, right? So ask yourself every 6 months from now, my first job, who am I, right? What do I really want to do after college? And that will kind of help you plan for your future much better. So, how many of you found this activity a bit helpful? Nothing? Must be very, very self aware, guys. I must say. It will definitely give motivation. Yes, absolutely. Princika, you're right. Right? But when we go on to the main topic for the day, which is group discussions, right? And yes, Anushka, it will give you clarity as well. So that's what we recommend, before you jump in to preparing for your interviews and your group discussions, it is important that you have clarity, a sense of clarity for yourself, because that is ultimately going to reflect when you start answering these questions, right? And that's why you need to know in your core, be very, very confident when you go into these rounds, right? Now, let me ask all of you, when you look at group discussions, what do you think are the do's and the don'ts, according to you, just so I get an understanding on where you stand? Respecting opinions of others, confident in communication is a must. Yes. What else? Eye contact. Okay. Interesting. You guys are right. Absolutely. 10 points to all of you. Stick to your point of view, listening and then speaking. Absolutely. So I think all of you are on the right track. Here are some things that I would want you to keep in mind, and I'll be expanding on these as well individually. The first thing that I want all of you to know is group discussions is basically just a test of knowledge, right? So read about a host of topics. If you're not in the habit, please read about current affairs, what is not only going around in the country, but also the world outside, especially the industry you are looking to get into, right? It could be anything. If you are looking to get into edtech, be highly aware of what are the major policies that have come up in the education sector. Which companies are thriving, who are your competitors. You need to be highly aware of the industry and the field that you're getting into, right? Also be highly aware. Please research about the company itself, right? Because those are the topics that will mostly be tested upon, right? So, post this, be relevant, right? One of the key things that a lot of us do, and it's human nature, is that when a question is thrown at us, and a lot of misconception is around the fact that you need to start the group discussion round. That is not so. If you are not understanding the topic at all, that is okay. What you need to concentrate on is make relevant points. The key thing is when we say make relevant points is do not repeat someone else's point. All right. So when you go into a corporate boardroom or a meeting as well, what we tell everybody is that, for example, let's say Nanika has stated the point that, you need to play to your strengths. And I agree with her. If I do not have anything to add to Nanika's point, then please don't state your point, right? Unless until your point is completely different. So try bringing something else to the table rather than just repeating or paraphrasing what someone else has said, right? Because as HRs and as professionals, we can see right through that, right? What are you doing different? Is your point relevant? Are you building upon someone's points? that makes sense, right? But the moment you start saying the same thing again, what someone else has already covered, that does not make sense. That's not completely relevant. That means you are talking for the sake of talking, right? Which is something that you should absolutely avoid, right? Then the third thing is listen. Listen to what others have to say, right? What am I saying right now? Am I making any sense? Do you agree with my point or do you disagree with my point? So I think one of you stated that stick to your point of view, right? Do you agree with that argument or do you disagree with that argument? Stick to it and then ultimately, kind of present your thoughts. One of the things that we kind of advise all our students to do, especially when you are kind of building a points as well, is to follow the pyramid principle, which is what is your key argument? Is it yes or is it no? Right? Then have your supporting points. Always have 3 supporting points and not more than 3, right? That's an efficient and concise way of actually putting across your thoughts. The moment you start, going into a paragraph, it makes absolutely no sense. People don't have so much time. You have to realize you need to be respectful of others in the group discussion as well. So kind of make sure that every point that you have 3 supporting points for it, and that's about it, right? Ultimately, be confident, right? So one of you said that you should always be making eye contact. Absolutely, right? And it's not only about making eye contact with, the HR or the manager or the company representative. Whoever's point, let's say if I am building upon Anjali's point, for example, right? I should definitely look towards her because you're talking to her, you're building upon her point, and anybody else. Kind of focus on that as well, right? Avoid using filler words. And that always comes down to being patient. If your thoughts you haven't kind of formulated your thoughts, it's okay. Take some time and then state your point. Always have your thoughts formulated. Some of the group discussions, they allow a pen and paper to be with you. That's for you to write down your points, right? And then kind of state your points rather than just diving into it and using a lot of filler words like yeah, that's an absolute no. It also kind of takes away from the fact that you are not confident, right? And ultimately lead the round. So again, a lot of people kind of think that if they have to lead the round, that means that they have to start and they have to be the first person to kind of start talking. That's not always the case, right? Like I said, if you are not understanding the topic correctly, try and listen and then state your points, right? You can always lead the round by stating relevant points again and again and adding more to the group discussion rather than just hogging the limelight. Any questions? Okay. So here are some things that I want you guys to avoid completely, right? Avoid being too imposing on others, right? Like we said, it's always about respecting other people's thoughts and opinions. So a lot of people kind of aggressively go like, oh, you are wrong, right? How can we paraphrase that? Anyone?
I don't agree with your point.
Absolutely. Aditi said, I beg to differ. Yes, absolutely. I beg to differ is a very good way, We can always go like, yes, Aditi, you have a very good point, but I would beg to differ, right? Or I would have a slightly different opinion than yours. I would say this, right? So if you thank the other person for their point as well, it shows you're calm, you're level-headed. But the moment I go like, you know what, you are wrong. I don't agree with you. You make no sense, right? And then it becomes like a direct attack. So it's not about being offensive. Remember, a group discussion is also a simulation of how you present yourself in, let's say, a brainstorming session or a meeting, right? if I have to absorb you into my company and I start feeling like she is very, very extremely, aggressive towards others, it also kind of highlights, right? How would you add points to my meeting at the end of the day, right? So always remember there's a nice way of going about things. Don't ever be highly offensive, right? Don't hog the spotlight. Time yourself, guys, and it's very, very necessary. In fact, time yourself for your interview questions as well, right? Not more than 45 to 50 seconds. The moment you kind of go above this time limit, that means you're going into a monologue and nobody wants to listen to a lecture. So, like I said, follow the pyramid principle. Yes, I completely agree with your point, or I am for or against this particular motion, right? And what are your three supporting points? I agree with you by 1, 2, 3. That's it. That's how you're supposed to be going about it, right? Remember, like I said, nobody wants to listen to a lecture or a monologue. Again, like I said previously, don't go around in circles. If someone has stated a point, do not repeat it unless you have something extra to add, or if they have missed out on something, or you have a completely new point, right? That is something that you must keep in mind. And if you've said something, don't repeat yourself again, right? Unless you're using that point as a reference. And ultimately, don't give up, right? If you haven't, let's say, like I said, if you can't start the round, that's okay. That does not mean you give up. Try and see. It's a conversation. That's what a group discussion is about. If you're sitting at a party as well, where can you add value to which person's point, right? So never get nervous. Try and see where can you start adding value to this discussion. And that's where it comes to the fact that you're leading it. The moment you start adding value, you yourself will be directing the discussion in a flow or in a place where you want to be at, right? So those are the most important things that you must keep in mind when you go into a group discussion round. Any questions from your end? So how many of you have sat for a group discussion? Okay, fumbling with words, that's more commonly seen. Okay, and you've tried practicing in front of the stage and mirror. All right, Anjali. One of the key things, like I said, is formulate your thoughts, right? Calm yourself down before you start actually talking. And a lot of times we have fumbling words is because our thoughts have not been formulated well, right? So always write your points down. I have seen that actually helps a lot. Once you kind of write it down for yourself and then refer to those points and talk, it makes more sense. So maybe you should try doing that once as well. And one of the key things I would advise you to do, because we have technology now, is instead of practicing in front of the mirror, try recording yourself and playing it back. Because once you kind of see your recording, you kind of understand much better. You can play it on loop as well. So that's one of the things. It's very awkward at first, but because a lot of rounds these days, because of the pandemic, is virtual, I would recommend you to record yourself so you get a better understanding as well. Any other questions, guys? Okay. Why don't I ask you guys to do a little simulation? What if I am your interviewer and you're all in a group discussion? My question for you is, how do you think the pandemic has positively impacted the education sector, or has it negatively impacted the education sector in India? You guys can write your points down in the chat as well. So Anjali, you're saying negatively according to me. Remember, 3 points, back it up. Why? Anyone? What if you have a biased opinion? Doesn't matter if you have a biased opinion as long as you're making a valid point. So this is just a simulation, guys. Okay, so Anushka is like 1, no field work. Prinsika said positively by including technology in the education system.
I would like to say negatively because I think there are still a lot of like sectors in India, especially rural sector, for example, where there are like not technology is not that robust there, so it may be problem for some people to access actually, technology. So that way, education is hindered that side.
Okay.
So maybe that's my point, and that's why I think it has affected education like negatively.
Okay, so you're saying SAS, all right, SAS. SAS is saying that it's negatively impacted the education system primarily because technology is hard for the rural sector of India to get, right? Do we have anybody who wants to build upon this point, or do you want to counter this point? Anyone who would want to unmute themselves? No one?
Ma'am, I'd like to add to Ehsas' point.
Okay.
So, ma'am, I feel that education or teaching has always been something that is we have experienced in offline mode, and we had to have a face-to-face interaction with our teachers. But since this online mode, we are missing that classroom touch that used to be there before, and it is something very new for all of us. And of course, when something new is introduced to us, it takes time to accustom to that, and maybe like we are different there. Some of us have been able to adapt to that, and some have not. So yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Valid point, guys. Very well done. And I see Aditi Sharma's also wrote it's positively 1 because it's work from home. It saves time from traveling, and that time can be given to your skills as well. So, very well done. And the third point is that you can do more work at home without a lot of fatigue. So great. And that's what I'm talking about. I think you really captured my points very clearly, right? Yes, positively. Why? These are my 3 points, right? Once the person states 3 points, then like Aditi Khattar kind of expanded upon Ehsas's point that I agree with Ehsas. It's not only about the rural sector, but it's also about the fact that, it's taken us time on an individual level to actually get used to the technology, right? That transition that we had last year was quite jarring for a lot of students at the end of it, right? So very, very well done. And that's how you're supposed to go into a group discussion round. It's about listening to what the other person has to say and then building upon those points. And if you want to counteract those points, then state your 3 supporting points, right? So well done, guys. That was just a bit of a simulation from my end as well. And that brings us to an end for today's talk on group discussions. I hope you all learned a lot. If you have any questions, please do write it on the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you, or you can always connect with me on my email as well. I'll write it on the chat for you guys. There you go.
Thank you, ma'am. It was indeed a very informative session. We would now proceed towards answering the queries. Please post your questions in the chat box. All your doubts will be answered accordingly.
Now, if you guys have any questions about your genetic interviews as well, I'll be happy to answer them for you, or your resumes or your CVs. So you can write that as well, if not only for group discussions. All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Okay, I got 2. Hold on. Does communication skills include learning more languages? That's a very interesting question, Aditi. I would say no. Your communication skills does not include learning more languages, unless and until your particular job requires you to be proficient in a particular language, no, it does not. Your communication skills ultimately boils down to how effectively can you communicate in a verbal and a written manner, right? So 90% of how you're going to be communicating is through emails. So please start making sure that your emails are in bullet points as well. And especially when you talk to everybody else around, how pleasant are you and how coherent are your thoughts? So always remember pyramid principle for any sort of business communication. That's what it actually means when it says communication skills. Okay. Sneha says, what if the topic of the discussion is something I know very less about and I have no worthwhile points to make? All right. So, Sneha, like I said, don't fret if you do not have a lot of knowledge about the topic of discussion. Listen. Listening is key, right? It's very rare, especially if you're reading the newspaper a lot and you're aware of the current happenings in the world, right? Listen to what the other people have to say and try and then make valid points where you feel that, okay, I agree with this person's point of view, it's making kind of sense, right? Then you can kind of build upon their points of view. But jumping into something which you have no knowledge about is not recommended, right? So it'll be very, very rare that you'll come across a topic that you have absolutely zero input on. It's all about kind of listening and then taking a way forward. All right. So Vinishka said, generally we get a chance to speak or to intervene in GDs. Would you please suggest any solution? Okay, so you hardly get the chance. So I think it's all about finding a lot of times, like I said, in group discussions, people go with the mindset that they only want to be heard, right? It becomes a big sort of, instead of a discussion, it becomes more like an argument with people trying to talk over each other, right? So instead of doing that, I think the best way to go about is the moment you hear someone's point and you agree with them, right? Then you kind of just go on to like, I agree with your point. This is what I want to add to it. Again, if there is an addition to make, start talking immediately after that person has finished his or her point. And you can just kind of raise your hand and just go like, I would like to add something that has not been covered here at all, right? The moment you say these words, again, remember, it's all about adding value to the discussion. If you feel everybody is saying the same point, you can also kind of highlight that, this has already been covered before. I would like to make a new point, right? So those are things that you can kind of use to make sure that attention is on you so you can kind of state your points across. And yes, I think the other question is the same as before. All right. And is there any other question that I've missed out on? No. All right. Well, thank you so much,
Ma'am,
guys.
I have a question. Like, what actually HR or observers look for in the candidates according to the profiles? Because I think it differs. Like, if it's a maybe you can say a finance profile or a manager profile, so they will look out like the candidate in the GD, like who is more observing and who can like manage this thing. So, like, what are these skills which can vary according to the candidate profile, like which we are applying for?
All right. Candidate profiles in general, like I said, I think the profile kind of boils down to the amount of knowledge you have on that topic, right? Your group discussions are meant to elaborate on a topic that is kind of related to your field or your industry, right? That's where your knowledge kind of comes into it. In general, what HRs look for any candidate, especially in a group discussion, is that A, like I said, how confident are you on your point? I think one of you, like I said, correctly pointed out that stick to your point of view. Do you agree with this topic? Do you disagree with this topic? You cannot start with saying, I agree with this topic and then suddenly change your point, right? That also shows that you yourself are not clear about it at all, right? Secondly, are you actually adding value to this discussion or are you just making noise, like I pointed out before as well, the moment you start kind of just talking for the sake of talking, just remember I can see right through it. I want to see, can you actually add value to my internal committee discussions, right? How does that happen? That only happens if you are listening and making absolutely valid points and adding value to my discussion, right? So those are things that I look for. And ultimately, your communication skills. It's, you don't, even if you're not highly comfortable with the language, that is okay, as long as you can communicate it in a very crisp, concise, and coherent manner. That means that you have perfect communication skills. That means yes, no, these are my 3 points, right? That's what I'm looking for. And if somebody asks you to elaborate on one of those points, then you can do so, right? But those are the main things that I would want you to really focus on, and focus on your body language as well, right? Not a lot of gestures, like we can see if you are absolutely nervous. So try practicing that as well. That's why I advised one of you to actually record yourself. Instead of practicing in front of a mirror, make use of technology. Try and really see how calm and composed you actually appear when you go for these rounds. Does that make sense? All right.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am, for answering our questions. It was really helpful.
No worries. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming on today. I'll write my email for you one more time. If you guys want to connect with me, um, feel free to do that as well. Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone.
The institution's Innovation Council extends sincere gratitude to Ms. Aishwarya Chauhan for delivering this session today and enlightening us about innovation consultancy and digital marketing. Thank you for taking out the time from your busy schedule and joining us. We are grateful for the learning experience that you provided. We extended our deepest thanks to our principal, ma'am, Dr. Payal Mago, for being our pillar of support and strength. We would like to extend our heartiest thanks to all the teachers for their constant support and motivation. Last but not the least, we would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to the audience for showing your keen interest in the webinar. We hope it provides you with a great learning.
Thank you.